You did it! You've graduated from college. So, now what? Welcome to adulthood! It's been about 2 years since I've graduated from college, and while I'm still learning a lot about what it means to like be in adulthood and all those things, I feel a little bit better about the post-grad era of my life. I definitely think I'm in a way better place than I was right after I graduated, because honestly, the post-grad transition
sucks.
What even is post-grad? Post-grad is when you just graduate from college. Once you've graduated from college, there's no like set path anymore. You are no longer on like schedule and the structure you had in college with your peers. No longer living so close to each other is honestly a very shocking time. I wish that I had better prepared, so I wanted to tell you what you can be doing to fully make it a little bit better, or at the very least know that you aren't alone in experiencing this, because it's rough out here. So, what are you doing after you graduate? That is genuinely like the worst question I would hear, but it's also everybody's like favorite question to ask you once you've graduated. Like, can I breathe? Be ready. I'm sorry in advance if that set off like a fight or flight mode. I know it has for me for so long, and during post-grad, it is unfortunately the most commonly asked question, so just be prepared for it. But I wanted to tell you that that is okay. It's literally as common as people asking you like what your major is in college. Now, like, you're defined by what your job is and what you're gonna be doing, unfortunately. Unless you have like a full-time job lined up like right away, it could send you into an existential crisis like it did for me, like a lot. I will say though, as a disclaimer, everybody kind of has their own paths and there is no right one way after college. That's the beauty of post-grad and life. Also the scariest part, because it's really up to you to be deciding what it is that you want to be doing. This is the point in which you and all of your peers are starting to diverge more, because some people are going to grad school or like applying for grad school. Some people are traveling. People are starting their first jobs right away. People are moving back home and gonna have to find a job to figure out in the meantime. I just wanted to let you know, first of all, that it's okay. Don't compare yourself to others. It's going to be a lot of differences, which is just not something people are used to, I would say, especially because you are with this like group of people, or everybody your age range-ish is on the same path as you are and you have been on pretty much up until now, and then you're just kind of left on your own. So it's not great, and just know that this is when it's starting to happen even more. People are like pregnant, having children, families buying house. It's nuts. Kind of scary. It's okay. It's just something that everybody always asks. So I wanted to talk a little bit about getting your first job after you graduate from college. When people ask you what you're doing after college, they're usually referring to what your like next job is, or what your job is going to be. I wanted to share some tips and advice that has worked for me for getting your first job once you graduate from college. First and foremost, I want to let you know that it is perfectly okay to not have a job lined up right as you graduate from college. I want you to remember that this is like summer break, kind of, and probably the last one that you're ever going to like really have, unless you become like a teacher, or unless you continue going to like graduate school or something like that. Also, you just graduated, you earned a degree, and I think that you should be proud of yourself. It's totally up to you and your financial situation and all of those things, but I just wanted to kind of push back against that idea that you have to have something lined up right away or that you're a failure. Like, that's just genuinely not the case. I personally took a break and I didn't even start applying because I knew that I wanted that summer break. I just wanted to say to give yourself a lot of grace and give yourself also a chance to like breathe. Don't burn yourself out by going from like a 4-year degree or however many years it took for you and jumping straight away just because that's what everybody thinks you should be doing. Like, sure, you can take a break afterwards, but I feel like it's a little bit harder to explain versus saying it now. And then by that point, it's like you have to tell people like that's your unemployment, or like your sabbatical, or you have to start thinking about like PTO. While it sucks not to have like that income right away, I just want you to know that it's totally okay to not have a full-time job immediately afterwards. I know some people who got a job right away once they've graduated. Amazing for them. But I also know that by that point, like when summer ended, they didn't really have that like buffer period in between working full-time and then like graduating. Everybody's on their own different paths, and that's totally normal. Do whatever you're feeling. Something that I did was I started like lightly applying to jobs like a month or two before I knew I wanted to actually start working, just to kind of get myself like into the habit without it feeling like super high pressure, like, oh no, I don't have a job yet, blah blah blah, and like being super down on myself. Let me tell you, I am the type of person where like, I don't know, I just got like super, like I feel like I lost my sense of purpose when I was like applying to jobs and like couldn't find anything. Once you've even already taken a break, just be prepared for the job search to take potentially longer than you'd like it to, especially in this job market right now. This job market genuinely sucks so badly. I'm on my second full-time job. My first full-time job, I got it about a month, maybe 2 months after I started looking. Okay, so I started job hunting in like August and taking it like really seriously in like September, and then I had started working in October. I had less experience then, right? Because I had just graduated from college. It literally took me longer to get my current job now, and I had more experience. Like I had full-time corporate job experience by that point. So you would think it'd be easier for me to get a job. It was not. The job market just genuinely sucks. So that's another thing I want you to kind of keep in mind, is that it really isn't you. You could have genuinely all the qualifications, but the economy sucks, the job market sucks, everybody's competing for jobs, and it just isn't what it used to be. Don't be super hard on yourself. Enjoy while you can. Oh, and another thing, your job does not necessarily have to be exactly what it is that you studied. My degree is in human biology and society with a concentration in medicine and public health. I was pre-med for the longest time. I pivoted a little bit into like health and like physician assistant. I'd literally done the prereqs for them, and I just ended up not doing it, and now I work in marketing and it's completely different. Just saying that you don't have to follow it is exactly that you studied. You can do whatever it is that you're wanting, and you just have to like kind of think about the ways in which the experiences that you do have can be relevant and applied to a job that you're wanting. But I can also share some of the tips, just some like rapid fire job hunting advice that I recommend and that I think have been helpful. I would say interviews are a two-way street. I know that it's a hard process to like go through, especially when the job hunting process is very draining, but if you can, please make sure to remember that you are interviewing them as much as they are interviewing you. Because if you're already not getting like a great vibe as soon as you like start the interview and you think that there's like some red flags popping up, just know that those red flags are likely going to be there once you start working there. So if you feel like that person is like, for example, micromanaging you, or they're like making you do like a huge assignment, like unpaid, something like that, know that you also have that autonomy to reject them. You are also trying to feel out if you want to work for them, because you are going to be spending like what, 8 hours a day working for this company, and it's important to remember you don't want to choose misery if you can help it. One of my mentors recommended this to me, and she said to always use up the full space on your resume. So for example, if you have a bullet point, you write like how that experience applies, blah blah blah. That bullet point should take up that whole space. Even if you only made it to like the halfway point, use it up. You should be using as much as you can, just because your resume should only be about a page. So make sure that you're making use of the space that you do have. And the third thing is, and this is super annoying, is that networking is really important. I would say it can be really cringe, I feel like, but my second job that I got, that I had such a hard time when I was like job hunting and I couldn't find one, my second job came from a referral. That is the way that I would say is like, it's not a guarantee once you get a referral, but it definitely is a shortcut and makes it easier. And if there's any way that you can get a leg up in that job hunting process, do what you can be doing. And also don't sleep on cold emails. Because personally, my current job as the social media director for the We're Here to Help podcast, I got from straight up emailing them. I have another video on that if you want to check that out. Explained it a little bit more in depth there. If you want another video on more job hunting like tips and my journey in that career, let me know. I'd be more than happy to make a video on that. Another one of the most impactful changes that happens once you graduate from college is that you move out. Obviously, you can't just stay on campus. You can stay close to where you went to school, and a lot of people do. A lot of people can stay in the city that they went to school in. It isn't necessarily going to be the exact same because not everybody does. So for people like me, I just wanted to tell you that it is perfectly okay to move back home. Of course, this depends on your relationship that you have with your family and your financial situation and all of those things. But for me, I definitely think that I made the right move by moving back home right after I graduated from college. I didn't have to put so much pressure on myself to find a job like right away, like what I've kind of mentioned, because I knew I didn't have like rent to be paying for. It's not super easy, of course. It's definitely really different. Sometimes I do feel like being back in my childhood bedroom, like, am I regressing? Am I like undoing all of the growing up that I had done once I had moved out for college? And I'm sure it's an adjustment for my parents too. It's not easy necessarily. Well, for me, a big reason of why I moved back home was because I have two younger siblings and they were both going to be going off to college the following year. And so for me, I was like, I want another year of my whole like family living together, and it's probably going to be the last time that would likely be happening. So I want to take advantage of that. And have you ever seen that one thing where it's like by the time you turn like 18, you've already spent like 90% of the total time that you're going to be spending of your life, like that you're going to be spending with your parents, you've already spent like 90% of it. Like, that's nuts to me, and honestly it makes me kind of cry sometimes. But because of that, I wanted to be living with them for as long as I could. And yeah, it's an adjustment. For me, I lived on my own in college, and then yeah, moving back into my childhood bedroom, I think for me it has been worth it. It saves me money. I'm not paying rent, thankfully. I'm getting to spend more time with my family. It can be hard sometimes, but I think that comes with knowing your own boundaries and being able to set them, which can be difficult, especially if you are in a household where you're like immigrant parents, you know. But for me, that came with going to therapy, because the cost of going to therapist versus the cost of rent, therapist is cheaper. But yeah, living at home has definitely allowed me more of that financial flexibility. I'm not spending that money that I would be paying for rent. I get to save that money instead, because at some point I would ideally like to own a place to live. Living at home means getting to save that instead, and or using that for luxuries that I might not be able to be going for once I am paying rent or paying a mortgage or whatever. It definitely is a very lucky position to be in, but I know that there will be a time where I'm going to move out. It's always an option, but I like being at home for now. Also, a big thing that deters me personally is the fact that I'm going to have to cook and decide what meal I'm going to be eating for the rest of my life. So that's terrifying, and I don't think I'm ready for adulthood if that's what it is. I think that moving out is going to be a big step for me when it comes to like feeling like a real adult. It would be nice to move out, but I think I'm happy with where I am at right now. And I hope that if you have to move back home too, you know that it's okay. I hate toxic positivity, but like, gotta get through the day. But because I live at home and just how the living situation after college for everybody changes, I will say a huge like noticeable change after college, and honestly the one that has been the most difficult one, is how different friendships look after college. Yeah, as somebody who is really, I would say, values my friendships and is a very friendship oriented person, going from seeing my friends like every day, getting to just like leave my little room, go down the hall and like knock on my friend's door and like getting to hang out with them like all the time, to now having to like schedule times to like hang out with my friends like 2 to 3 business weeks in advance. It was such like a huge shock, and I think that that convenience is genuinely one of the things that I miss the most about college. And whenever I think back about college, those are my fondest memories, because yeah, living at home back in the suburbs and now with so many friends spread out in different places just isn't that easy, and it really sucks. I went from seeing my friends like in passing, and it was super easy to be spontaneous, versus in post-grad, I'll like see friends maybe a good week is honestly 2 times a week. of seeing friends 2 or 3 times a week, and also just being in the suburbs, everything is farther, people are all spread out, there's just less room for that spontaneity, and everybody is kind of doing their own thing now too. There's no longer that schedule, and there's no longer that like convenience of just being all close to each other, both in physical proximity but also in life path. That being said, whether you like it or not, friendships after you graduate from college are going to look different. It's just the way it is, and it really sucks unless you're like in a walkable city, but those rents are super expensive. It's the convenience that goes away, but I will say that it is not impossible to be hanging out with friends regularly. I still do. I would say I see my friends around 2 to 3 times a week, and you will probably notice that your social battery is going to go way down either way. I feel like if I tried to be as social as I was in college, I'd probably like need a week to recover. Yeah, it's just different, but that also just means your friends are likely going to be of a lot more quality than quantity, because there's that less convenience. Like, you are friends with people less because it's convenient, you are friends with people more because you are willing to make an effort to see each other. And for me, I love that intentionality. I definitely do miss that community feeling, but I also know that I'm really lucky to have a healthy social life. It just is different. But yeah, it's going to really show you who your friends are who are willing to make that effort, and who you are willing to make that effort for. Would you really, like, if your friend lives like 2 or 3 hours away and you're gonna drive it, are you willing to see them? You really do have to put a lot more effort and intention to friendships once you've graduated from college. And yeah, it just sucks because it's like, whoa, life is completely in your hands now. That's just how it is. I wish it could be better. This is something that is unique to living back home and moving back home to your hometown. But I would say something that I really prided myself in this is that because I knew I was the one who was moving back home, I reached out to a lot of old friends of people who might have stayed in the hometown or I hadn't spoken to them in a while. It is scary and it is really nerve-wracking, but I would say that in my head at least it made more sense for me to be reaching out because I'm the one moving back home and they might not know I moved back home, so how would they know to reach out? But that really does come with being a lot more intentional about who you want to be spending your time with. Yeah, so when I wasn't working just yet and I had just moved back home, I had texted some friends from high school saying, hey, I moved back, like I'd love to like hang out, yeah, and catch up. And honestly, all of the responses were really good and everybody responded really positively. Everybody loves like hanging out and like being remembered. But yeah, just know that it is good to be reconnecting with old friends. Like, I knew for me, my friendships were really, really important, and I wanted to kind of establish social support systems right as I got back. Did all of them stick? No, not necessarily, but I will say that at the very least I knew I did what I could. I will also say that making friends after college is so much harder. At least from my experience, there just aren't really places that I've noticed that are like third places, right? Or like third spaces, basically where people can gather. I've tried looking, I've gone out and like tried meeting people, but it's definitely really difficult and can be really discouraging. I highly recommend getting on top of your social life as soon as you can, just because, I don't know, as soon as I have like my friends, it makes everything else like a little bit easier. I don't even think I've really made any like new friends that I hang out with regularly. I think I've just been really lucky that I've been able to have friends who've moved back here that I can see regularly. Making friends is really hard. You really have to put yourself out there, and yeah, I don't know, like that I still struggle with making friends. Hopefully I'm gonna get better at it, but it's not like college where there's like one place that people go to regularly. For me, I work remotely. I don't know, when I would just go out, people are just like either like they just tend to be a lot like older than me, and it's rough. So treasure your friendships. Having friends and people your age that you communicate with regularly, I think has been like a saving grace for me. And if you think that making friends is hard after graduating from college, wait till you hear about dating. Dating for me personally has always been kind of difficult. I personally have never been in a relationship. Someone once said that like
college is your biggest dating pool.
And personally, I haven't found anybody. I didn't find anybody there. So now I'm back in my hometown. Great. I mean, it's already hard in general to find people like my age-ish, even to be friends, so much less to even date. Just kind of giving you a warning there. I think that is especially difficult once you've graduated from college, because one of the biggest feelings that I experienced was loneliness, especially because of that like lack of community, having friends spread far out, and it's just like not what life used to be like. The thing is,
we live in a society
that prioritizes romantic relationships over friendships. So sometimes when other people's like social battery might be dead and they might just be talking just to their partner, or like they have a partner that they can rely on, and when you're single, that's just not always the case. But I will say, like, I can see why people would be wanting to get into a relationship. Like I would want one, but when it comes to being in a relationship after you graduate from college, you have a person that you can be like relying on, and at least from what I've seen, it seems like it can like replace community, at least in the relationships that I've like witnessed. Yeah, I mean, like, that's your person, and that person, like, you get to see them regularly, versus when you're single, you might not have that as much, and you have to put in more effort into your friendships, which isn't a bad thing, and I genuinely love it. It just can be tricky because a lot of my friends who already were in relationships before they graduated, they have that person can likely fulfill a lot of those needs. And yeah, when your social battery is just kind of shot from like searching for so many jobs and like just dealing with the post-grad like transition, it makes sense why they would go to their partner, of course, but it just can be lonely. But that being said, don't just rush into a relationship just because you want that after college. This really is a time to break out of your comfort zone, I would say. I've kind of talked about it a lot, but just don't compare yourself. Like, everybody's on their own, like, different paths, and a relationship would make it feel like the transition is a little bit eased, but I wouldn't prioritize that if you're not already wanting that, personally. This post-grad period of your life is definitely uncomfortable, but it really is the time to break out of your comfort zone. This is a time in which you are really choosing what you want your life to be looking like, and yeah, it's really scary and can be really overwhelming. Just know that you're really not alone in this. Some ways to help it is to be talking to others who are experiencing the same things you are, to be getting advice from people who are a little bit older than you, maybe, who've already gone through it, grounding yourself with your friendships, and trying out the classic post-grad hobbies, pickleball, rock climbing, and running 5Ks or marathons or like whatever. It's really up to you, and post-grad is a time when there's really no like set timelines anymore. I mean, there never really was, but like people's paths are branching off more and more and more. That's more of the reason why you shouldn't be comparing yourself. Someone might be, for example, getting a job right as they graduate from college, but what if they don't have a job and are laid off a couple months later? You know, you really don't know, and it's all about the long game and really just making it through to the next day. That's the most important thing. So that comes with really grounding yourself, and I hope that you take this time to give yourself a chance to discover what you're liking and what works best for you. Don't fall victim to comparing yourself to others. You might see other people getting into grad schools or doing other things that you think you might have wanted to be doing, but as long as you know that you're doing what you can be doing, and most importantly, to be patient with yourself and giving yourself that grace, because post-grad is weird and it's hard, and this transition is so rough. It is also a really good time for self-discovery and making life your own. You got this. If you have any other questions, or if there's anything else you want to hear about or want me to expand on, let me know. But at the end of the day, I hope you know that you should be proud of yourself for graduating. Congratulations on that again, and take it easy. It is very difficult. You really do deserve the kindness to yourself. Okay, bye. Thanks for watching.